Hello everyone, my name is Craig and welcome back to the channel, and this is a video review of the Nerf Elite Shellstrike DS-6, but the Magic the Gathering Secret Lair Limited Edition of it. It's still just a Shellstrike, so I'll review it the same. Let's get into the video. Let's start out with an external overview of the blaster. Starting up front, there's no end strike barrel lug. I get it to the barrel here. This is a breech loader, technically. To unlock said breech, there is a button here present on the left side only, not on the right side, not full ambi bro, but if you pull that down, the breech opens up, and you can take one of these shells that it uses to fire, and just place it on in there and shut the breech just like that. Capacity of this is 3 shots for each of the shells, and this blaster fires only with these shells. These are the same shells in the trilogy, and I believe the same shells in the whatever that zombie strike blaster is. I literally forgot the name of it, but I believe that one is also compatible as well. But definitely if you have a trilogy, those shells are compatible. Putting in the shells is fairly simple. You do have to kind of line them up in there, but not really an issue on there, and there is enough space up front that you can front load if you do want to. It'll run on a smart AR system if you decide not to shoot up 3 shots, but it's a 3-shot shotgun. Why would you give up those 3 shots? I don't know, but to take out the shell, if you have it in there, you'll pop it back open, and you can tilt the blaster down, but you have to give it a shake. It won't immediately come back out. Or if you have had it in there, you can just push your finger from the front and then take it out just like that. That is the shell piece, and make sure that you give a good push to this up front, because there's a little tooth that hooks onto this, clamping it in place. If you're able to see that tooth when you shut the breech is not shut all the way. I'll let you know that. And then it won't fire. Nothing else up top except for getting to the back. This blaster is spring powered. This is the priming handle. This little itty bitty thing here. To prime, you do that, and you're ready to fire the blaster once. Prime weight is pretty standard for most Nerf blasters on the market right now. Maybe a little bit on the stronger side by like a tiny bit. I mean, it is shooting 3 darts at once, but it's nothing out of the ordinary with it. I personally don't like these small little priming thingies, but I wish that this was a whole like big old top slide for even something like this blaster, but I can kind of understand it. Getting down to the grip is not proportional to the blaster, but it is comfortable and actually helps balance the blaster pretty well for how small it is, and it's pretty comfortable. I had small hands and it fits on there well. If you have larger hands, it will work with you too. Getting down to the bottom, there is a sling mount if you want to run this on a 1-point sling. There's a handguard here. In this, I love how you do handguards here. Don't do it in the trigger area. Always try to do it down here if you're going to do a handguard. Trigger pull is pretty smooth for Nerf Elite series, right? This blaster does not have slam fire. I don't even know how that would work with the shell loading blaster. Getting down to the bottom, there is an end strike tactical rail that you can add other attachments, such as a more shell like attachment thingy that can go right on the blaster like that, and you have more shells to open up and to put into the blaster. That's really cool. I bought this. It does not come with the blaster, but I bought it off of Amazon, and I'm glad that I did that. But end strike tactical rail on the bottom, the only end strike tactical rail, but dig the tactics for having it. Getting up front, there's a place to hold 2 additional shells if you want to. Again, this blaster will not fire without those shells, so make sure you don't lose them. But you can hold 1 shell in the barrel if you want, and front load plus 2 additional reloads. And you can have up to 6 if you decide to get to one of these extension thingies. But it is definitely not required for you to buy this on here, and I'm not going to harp on this product too much. Right, that's basically everything to go over with this blaster, besides the snazzy Magic the Gathering paint job, which I love Magic the Gathering. And I thought that this was a totally new blaster coming but they just collabed with Magic the Gathering, but I was disappointed to find out when it was a Shell Strike, so, but still a cool blaster to review. Let's get into a firing demo. We'll be using the shells, but only with Nerf Elite darts for this firing demo. Oop, dropping my shells. Alright, I can shut it. Firing analysis and conclusion of the Elite Shell Strike. Firing the blaster was actually pretty fun, but eventually it did get a little bit boring just doing this, loading in the blaster, closing it up, and then loading it and firing. It's just a lot of steps, and that's going to get tiresome with repetition. But it is a fun, unique little play experience. I wouldn't consider just overly war practical as far as a primary. For a secondary, for occasional, this could be a legitimate purchase that you could make, or legitimate option that you could do if, like, your primary goes down and you need to quickly at close range go in and blast somebody at close range. This could actually work. FPS out of this, I only did with the 3-shot method, not 2 or 1. I mean, you can make it 2 shots or 1 shots, but why would you? But it shoots 43 feet per second, but I can't really compare that to 70 FPS because it's shooting 3 darts at once, not 1 dart at that one. I will tell you that 2 and 1 darts, it's not that much greater of velocity, but there is significantly more velocity with less darts. But you're not going to buy this blaster to make it a single shot blaster. But FPS is kind of low down there, but for a shotgun style pistol blaster, it's decent. I can accept that. No jams, malfunctions with the blaster. It took everything that I fired through it with it. Pretty much the only cons really I see with this blaster is one, that it's kind of niche. I would still recommend a dedicated secondary, like at Strong Arm or Disruptor or some other higher capacity, much easier to like top prime. Even a single shot blaster might be better to whip out in an emergency than this blaster, unless if you just keep one with a shell loaded. But generally in those situations, you're probably going to whip out your secondary and only fire off like the entire, you're not going to be reloading your secondary that much, right? Because you're going to be engaging an opponent and somehow your primary goes down, so you need that quick one to engage the enemy, and then you're like ducking behind cover or something and then figuring out what's wrong with your primary. So you're not going to be sitting there trying to reload. I wouldn't see you firing off like 10 shells of these things in a Nerf war, right? You'll probably just, your primary goes down, you'll probably be doing this, you'll prime it, you'll fire it once, and then be like, okay, boom, discard the shell for right now. Let me set this down and figure out what's wrong with my primary. That's probably what you're going to be using this for. But there are some people that are shotgun people, and they'll probably run this as a primary. You're kind of crazy if you do, but for that. But for it, even its role and just in general, it does what it's supposed to do. I like it. My opinion on this blaster is actually pretty positive for that. I personally don't really see myself using this. I would rather use, like I said, something like a Strong Arm or a Disruptor, or even a single shot blaster with a decent velocity if I needed to use a secondary. Although I am the person that would want to try to have my secondary have a little bit of playtime in each battle, even if it's just once, just to have it. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't run the secondary at all. all, but you never know the constrictions of the game. Actually, you would know the restrictions of the game, but you never know the situations that you could be in to it, right? You could be in such tight corners that your primary's too much to go through, or too narrow, so you would have to whip out something like this and engage opponents like this. But for these purposes, it's pretty darn good. My recommendations on this one, if you really liked it, I would check out the trilogy. However, I would recommend that you use this over trilogy, because the trilogy is just bigger on that, and really I think that that's more of a complicated thing. Trilogy just seems more like a primary that you would use it, and using just these shells, unless if you use the Sledgefire, I did remember that blaster name, unless you're like a Sledgefire guy that mains that in a Nerf war, I don't really see people maining a shell blaster in any sort of Nerf event at all. So this is really a niche type of role, and for those people that do, maybe they might have it. They'll probably have something like a Sledgefire or trilogy, and then whip out this because they're gung-ho about shotguns and stuff. And even for that, they're all good options. I'd still recommend trilogy, or sorry, I recommend the Shellfire over the trilogy. Right? If you're going to use this, just use it as a secondary in this case. Right? Unless if you're one of those weirdos that dig shotguns, you're probably going to choose one of the primaries over it. So aside from that, there's really not that much negative about it. It's just there's way better options out there, but by itself, it does what it's supposed to do. It does it well. And I really love the snazzy paint job and stuff for it. So that is my review of the Elite Shell Strike, the limited edition version. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.